Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to the latest webcast that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly as part of our Roadmap to Recovery series. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Brett Tollman, who is, of course, the CEO of the Travel Corporation, and Gavin Tollman, who is the president of the Travel Corporation. And I think this is the first time I've interviewed you both together, so I'm very excited that you're both here. How are you both?
Great, and you, Lucy?
Yeah, really, really good. Now, we have talked separately over the last few months on different occasions, and we've talked about different aspects of how your business has been impacted by the pandemic. But Brett, if I can come to you first of all, I wonder, you're a global business, you operate in lots of markets, across lots of sectors, touring, river cruise, hotels. I wonder whether that sort of breadth and scale of your operation has actually helped you to weather the storm.
Sure. Great question, Lucy. And I'd also point out that this is a first for Gavin and I. We've never done a joint session like this before, and it's wonderful to do it with you and your audience. And hello to everyone in the UK. We certainly thought prior to this that we were a globally diverse and well-spread business, but we're entirely invested in travel, hospitality, and tourism. And so our business has been absolutely devastated by this, as everyone else has. In 2020, we did 10% of the revenue we did in 2019. And, we've certainly been challenged by this by everyone else. But I would note that I think we're perhaps the only travel company in the industry that has not had to reach out and find any new third-party debt. We've not had to bring in partners or investors. Our balance sheet was incredibly strong going into this. As a family, we've always taken the philosophy that we do not do dividends, and that we keep the money within the business for events like this, although we certainly never expected, global pandemic to occur to this extent and for this long. So it has certainly been impactful, but we've not wasted the opportunity to rethink our business, to reinvent our business in many ways, appreciating how consumer behavior is going to change. Another thing that we've done is, we believe our most important asset besides cash is our people. So we've retained so much of our global team, and that has certainly been a big cash draw. But what that's allowed us to do over the past 14 months is to remain incredibly connected with our travel advisor partners. We have hosted hundreds and hundreds of events to keep them engaged, to keep them informed, to keep their spirits up, talking about, what's to come, the experiences that we're offering. This has been an incredible opportunity, with people stuck at home, not out on launches and so forth, to be able to engage with our travel agency partners. And so it's been a great opportunity. And I think our teams have done a brilliant job, especially Gavin with his Trafalgar, Cost Saver, and Brendan teams in North America, to doing very engaging virtual events where thousands of people have attended. We've hosted them with our travel agency partners and their consumers, which have been particularly successful. 60–70% of the RSVPs have attended from the US to the UK. And I'm just so proud of our team who have and continue to work on 70% reduced pay until we see our world recovering. But, we'll come out of this just fine. We'll survive this year, which I think for all of us, we went into 21 thinking the recovery would come by the first quarter, but we'll obviously get to that in a moment.
Okay, all right. Well, it's good to hear. One of my questions was going to be actually around the kind of financial stability, because, you mentioned there you haven't had to take on extra debt. So many companies have had to do that to survive. So you haven't had to do that. And you've obviously managed, as you said, to keep your teams as intact as you can. Where has there been a rub then? Is it been in terms of pulling back on investment, or have you still managed to maintain that during this period?
We've definitely maintained that. I'm very proud. Unlike most charities, we funded all of our foundation, TreadRight Foundation charities last year and this year. Number one. More importantly, we've continued to invest. We're rolling out a global new telephony system, over $16 million US, again, which we're funding all of ourselves. And we've been able to roll out during lockdown. So the US, Canada, we're about to go live in Australia and New Zealand, and we'll be coming to the UK next. And this system is a global digital platform integrated with our Salesforce CRM. So when the phone rings from one of our travel agency partners, we will immediately know who it is and be able to call up instantaneously all of their pending bookings, their pay in fulls, and other data, so that our contact center individuals who are brilliantly trained will be able to serve them better than ever before, to ensure we have all the data there. The call will be faster and more efficient, and hopefully, obviously, always focused on closing the sale and getting our commissions paid as timely as possible.
Okay, all right, good. You haven't rested on your laurels then. So, Gavin, perhaps you could talk to, I mean, obviously you operate across different markets and different sectors. Have there been certain areas that have fared better? Maybe it's to do with demographics or particular products, or has everybody been sort of hit pretty equally?
So, Lucy, what we are definitely seeing is, or I guess there are two ways of answering that question. Obviously, in the midst of lockdown, it was pretty egalitarian. The entire world was shut. However, and as Brett began and said, you know, there's this pent-up demand that we are seeing globally. And you don't, Lucy, have to go and look at research. Clearly, research is telling us that trend is there everywhere, and particularly you're seeing it here in the United Kingdom. Now, the issue is not whether or not people want to travel. It is the desire of certainty to enable them to move from the desire to making the booking. And you know, that has been one of the biggest burdens you've had in various markets that we have had everywhere, because until you get that greater degree of certainty, right, consumers will engage, but they won't book. And I guess certainly one of the great examples here in the UK was just this last weekend,
right? Yeah,
where we had the great announcement from Boris Johnson telling us that, you know, we were about to open up, and these were the countries where you're going to open up. But we kind of threw a party, and no one came, Lucy, because what was missing from that was the certainty of where you can go, where were the flights, how were you going to go, what was going to occur in country. And that is really what is needed. You know, with that specific certainty, Lucy, there is no doubt that that translates directly into bookings. Yeah. And the best market where we have seen that is in the United States, where it is recovering faster than anywhere else. And literally, we are growing between 20 and 30% week over week in number of bookings. So once it comes in a flood. And certainly as we look forward to the 17th of May next week, which, you know, I'm here in the United Kingdom, as is Brett, where we're looking forward to seeing the United Kingdom open. I believe all of our travel agents partners should expect to see our business grow exponentially here in the weeks ahead, and really get ready for that very moment, Lucy. But of course, you just hope that we don't have Grant Shapps making some other comment to alienate everybody this weekend yet again. But assuming he doesn't, I think we'll be in great shape.
But Gavin, before we move on then, because you've mentioned Shapps, and every time I speak to you, do talk about the government decisions. Were you surprised? Were you disappointed on Friday in terms of the opportunity for the UK market? Because even those countries on the green list, I mean, it doesn't mean to say you can even go to them. I mean, it's all about you can come back without quarantining back in the UK, but a lot of them aren't even open. And this was pretty short, and most people in the UK were obviously a little frustrated about it. How did you feel? Because I know the UK market's very important to you.
It is, and when we look forward, Lucy, it is one of our greatest areas of identified opportunity in in a post-pandemic world, and we really are looking forward to working with so many of our partners here. So the answer is yes. It was hugely frustrating in two ways. Number one, the lack of clarity, and if you speak to as we did on Saturday to our call centers, number one question we were getting is, okay, we want to go to Australia. And then we are saying to a customer or to going, sorry, you can't go to Australia, but they said, we heard Australia's open. So you have an unnecessary conversation, Lucy. Number two, as we said with Mr. Shaps, this lack of real understanding of our industry. And look, we all know the idiocy of his comment of that of travel agents and, what were travel agents before. Because as we look forward, one of the area we are most excited by, and obviously, Lucy, I had the opportunity to be with you where you interviewed me for an ATAS interview, and that was last year. And everything we spoke about has come true, Lucy. And this is our agent partners' greatest opportunity for their relevancy. And so the lack of a government's understanding of this desire for people to go and the importance of the role of a travel agent in being able to fulfill that is unbelievably frustrating.
Yeah, and insulting, I think, for many of our viewers and our readers. All right, you mentioned there that you were hoping perhaps the recovery might start in Q1 a little sooner. It's going to take a bit longer than that, but I know you have started your restart in some places. Perhaps could you just update us where you are with the restart of operations across your different brands and products, please?
Sure. So our first operations started in Australia last fall with domestic travel. We've started operating in the US on domestic. We took the decision late last summer not to operate at all domestically in the US with the high number of cases and to wait until it was absolutely the right time, in conjunction with obviously national parks were the #1 destination, but they had terrible limitations on the number of people that could enter in one vehicle, which was 10 people, including the driver and the travel director. And so we just didn't think it was wise or profitable to do so. But we have started operating from February on international trips out of the US. We took our first guest to Egypt in February. It was a young couple with Trafalgar and Cost Saver. They insisted on going. They couldn't wait to go. We gave them the best time of their lives. They were so happy, but it was just 2 people. But those numbers continue to grow every week. We've taken more people to Egypt since then, while making a note that one has to be so careful. We had 4 people booked the following week with Insight. They didn't book their air with us, and the airline they booked with gave them the wrong information, saying that they had 96 hours to do their PCR from date of departure. But with Lufthansa, and they had to clear through Frankfurt, it should have been 72 hours. And so obviously the connection flight was expired by the time they would have taken that to get to Cairo. And so they were turned away at the airport, and we had no knowledge of that and couldn't help them. So that's just an insight to all of us and a reminder that we all have to work together on this, because it is very challenging. Flying over last weekend on BA from Los Angeles, I used the Verifly app. It took me 5 hours to complete it because the PCR test was not picking up my date of birth, which had to be on there. But eventually I got my 3 green ticks, turn up at LAX. British Airways wanted nothing to do with it. They wanted to see printed copies of my locator. They wanted to see verification of the 3 paid PCR tests I had to have, which again wasn't clear. But someone from WTTC who had just returned from our Cancun conference told me that. So I had those printed, and then obviously your PCR test. And when I got to immigration at Heathrow, they again wanted nothing to do with the app, and they wanted to see the printed copies. It took about an hour and a half for 300 of us in the resident line to get through, and there was about 300 people in the international line. And each person was taking about 20 minutes to be processed because most of them didn't have the necessary paperwork, including British citizens, to get back in the country. So it just reinforces the challenge that we have ahead of us talking about the recovery, because I landed at Terminal C. There was no other plane there. And as I say, when I got to the immigration lines, there was only 3 desks open. But you can just imagine when you got thousands of people turning up at Terminal A and or the other ones, obviously, and how long is it going to take to get people through unless they start using these apps? And obviously there's been quite a bit of news lately of fraudulent PCR tests. So, the roadmap ahead of us continues to be challenging. And unfortunately, so much of it continues to come from our governments who are just not either making it clear, expediting the processes and protocols, and or just getting out of the way and letting the private sector get on with it. I really salute the Greek tourism minister, who I think has done a brilliant job, Harry, in trying to excite and accelerate the other EU ministers and the British ministers to understand what needs to be done. And I just wish all tourism ministers were like Harry, because I think Greece has been brilliant on their engagement with the industry, listening to us, and obviously working to try to get the government to expedite their approach. And, Greece will obviously win this summer with British travelers and hopefully Portugal and others. So, we keep growing slowly but surely, but we're hoping for significant improvement from June with Portugal opening. Uniworld's expecting full cruises to take off, primarily with US and UK travelers. We're expecting all 3 of our ships to be sailing in France from the 4th of July. And I did hear some great news from some industry colleagues who work with a number of organizations who believe with President Biden coming over on the 4th of June, that sometime during the month of June, there will be a co-announcement between the US and UK governments of the bridge opening between the US and the UK, not just London, New York, and that we will be flying to the US and back from the 4th of July or thereabouts. I understand BA, Virgin, United, and others are starting to bring on more capacity. So I think that's going to be
cross my finger too.
Agents. And hopefully that'll come to pass.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness, absolutely. So go on.
Lucy, if I could just to augment what Brett has said, I guess there are two variables. Is number one is, and I think he said it really well, is this is an opportunity for all of us to work collaboratively. And I guess if we draw parallels, Lucy, to post 9/11 and all that craziness that happened there afterwards as it related to security lines, what you did, where you were, different countries all doing crazy different things. That is where we find ourselves at this moment. And like Brett, I've had the opportunity, since being vaccinated, traveled into the United States for business, coming here to the United Kingdom, was in South Africa, and you just see the craziness of the different countries, how different people are approaching that, different airlines, as Brett said. But the key thing is for all of us to work as one. And certainly when we look to touring, guided holidays, I think this is one of our great opportunities. Secondarily, looking forward out of the UK, there is no doubt, not only on the domestic side, but on the staycations, but clearly the desire to go to the United States has never been higher. And when we look at all our search terms on our website, as well as within Google, the United States is where everybody wants to go. And I hope Brett is 100% right of everything he's heard, because if that does happen, we do open between the United Kingdom and the United States. We will have not just a good 2022, but I believe an excellent third quarter of 2021 and into the fourth quarter too.
Oh gosh, that would have been much needed for you guys, but also for agents as well. I mean, the complexity that you both talk about it is, and it'd be great if we could all collaborate and work together, but it is going to exist for some time, isn't it, around what tests do I need and what the different entry requirements are. But that should play into the hands of travel agents and I guess guided touring companies who are going to hold your hand and help you through it. Would you think, Gavin?
Lucy, it is one of our greatest areas of opportunity. And so certainly when I look to travel agent partners, their relevance in a post-pandemic travel world has never been more vital. But again, what they've got to make sure they do, Lucy, it's their way of them adding value is not just to let someone come in and actually just tell them where they want to go. It's to ensure that they are asking for the right open-ended questions. And both Donna and Chris here of our great teams in the United Kingdom, they have, we've got entire ways of training our travel agent partners to give them all the right open-ended questions. So you understand what it is that when a consumer wants to travel, what are their needs for when they are ready to go, right? And really understanding that. Then secondarily, as you said, Lucy, it's not only that, but then making sure you match to where they want to go and where they want to go and when they want to go to what the needs are to go there, and making it seamless. And clearly, the fact that touring today lets you go into a destination without a worry. We make travel 100% effortless, and because we've planned the right itinerary, and if things change, we can adapt to it. Because we're the experts in country, we make sure, and Brett gave the example of that couple going to Egypt. Because they had booked with us, yes, the airline screwed up their trip, Lucy, but by the time we spoke to them, speaking to our ground operator, we were still able to take them. They still went on their holiday to Egypt, obviously slightly delayed and with certain penalties from us, from the airlines. I mean, there was a whole lot of complications, but they still went, Lucy. And those are the types of things where us working as we did with their travel agent, and us working as with the local ground operators, you getting our expertise to make sure it is the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Lucy, if I can just add, also what we did very innovatively last year, which actually came from our 90-year-old chairman, was to add this well-being director position, a first in the industry and an exclusive with Trafalgar, Insight Vacations and Luxury Gold, just to remind our travel agency partners. And this person is there to ensure the trip goes off smoothly and effectively. We're maintaining, whatever the protocols are in every country, and, every country is still different. And the second thing I would just note is we need to stay very cognizant and agile, all of us, over the next 90 to 120 days, because I believe things are going to change very quickly. WTTC has shared with us that most governments recognize that a 72-hour PCR is not effective, with that 72 hours from test to departure. So more and more of them are going to be moving to the home antigen tests, being they have become that much accurate, and you can do it within 24 hours. So that's going to change quickly, I believe, in the next 90 days. Obviously, the social distancing changes are going to come. What I mentioned earlier about the national parks, we've worked with the Department of Homeland and the Department of Interior that oversees the national parks, and most of them have now changed those limitations, so that's going to help. But all of these changes are going to keep coming, so what you thought you knew yesterday to tell a customer is probably going to be different tomorrow. So we all just need to stay very much up to date on that, so we are providing the right information, and I think it will get easier. But the next 120 days are probably going to be very messy and uncertain. So communicating with each other more than ever before, looking at some of these training modules. We have this Sherpa tool on the Trafalgar, Insight, Uniworld, etc. website, which gives you the latest information on every destination and what the requirements are on testing and so forth. So we're all in this together, and we're there to help. As Gavin said, Donna Jevons and Chris Townsend, our heads of sales here in the UK for all of our brands, are just brilliant and there to support you and our partners.
Okay.
And Lucy,
look at your health and safety protocols that you've put in place. Gavin, we talked about them quite a lot, because you were saying that the key things that were important to customers in all the research that you've done was sort of flexibility and obviously the assurance that they were going to be safe. So have those evolved at all, what you've put in place, given the rollout of the vaccination, or have you enhanced them? Where are you with those protocols?
And if I could add the third variable, which is probably the most interesting one, Lucy, as well, is will I still have a good time? Oh, yeah. And because that's actually why, why do you go on holiday, Lucy? You don't go there just for the protocols. So the answer to your question is we continue to evolve all the time, and we've put in place unbelievably robust ways of communication between each of our selling markets each of our operating regions, because as you asked in your opening question, what was announced, no one thought through, yes, a British person could go there without quarantine, but they aren't receiving a British person. So what is the point? And so what we have been doing is making sure, and we have available to all of our agent partners, both sides of the equation. It's not just where you can go, it's what happens when you get there. And that is really where we are incredibly focused right now, Lucy, is to make sure we bring the two sides together and are able to communicate that. And it is because for us, we have such an enormous divergence between where we are on our US selling region of where they can go. Where clearly from Australia, which everyone says they will accept Australians, but you can't leave Australia. So you've got this delta, and most excitingly for us is where we'll be going imminently with the United Kingdom. And when we look at that, Lucy, one of the regions you can go to is Iceland, and it's a great example where we have had enormous success on opening up Iceland for travel, and we will shortly be running our first trips to Iceland. With different size of groups, how we're running those different sizes of groups, again, we are taking care of that, Lucy, so our agent partners don't need to. And we will make sure they understand the protocols. And that's a great example where if they have a customer who wants to go to Iceland, traveling with us is the easiest way. Just one phone call, we take care of all the rest, because that is what we're doing, and always evolving based on the destination itself, Lucy.
Okay. And your wellness director, just before we move on from that, because you were very kindly, I think we announced that when you first brought that into play, but they've now traveled they've actually been in place and traveled on an actual trip. Is that right? And how's that gone?
In the United States, they have. In the United States, and it is, I mean, clearly, Lucy, they have done everything that is needed, because and the reason behind them, Lucy, is the following, and it goes back almost to your initial question. There are 2 points that are driving consumers. Number one, am I still going to have a good time? And that is what the travel director is there for, Lucy, coming and bringing the destination alive, giving the soul of it. So, our guests, our travel agent partners, customers can just be. They get to understand the soul of the place, of why they've gone there, and have a great time. And then on the opposite side, making sure that before we get to a venue, it's been cleaned, making sure that before we check into a hotel, that everything is available for our group before they arrive. And that is what the well-being director is doing. And Lucy, there were a couple of ways of smoothing out some of the edges, but for the most part, it's been unbelievably successful when you see how these 2 individuals work hand in hand. And for the guest experience, it has never been greater.
Okay, great, good to hear. All right, well, look, with all of the pandemic issues that we've had to deal with, it would be easy, wouldn't it, to forget other really important things around running a travel company. But I know you haven't forgotten about your sustainability pledge. Brett, I wonder if you could just update us a little bit around your strategy or your sort of Make Travel Matter experiences, and also your climate action policies. Could you just tell us where you are with that, please?
If I can just share a couple of slides with our audience. So, we've undertaken this journey for over a decade, and we think it's so important, both as a family-owned and run business now in its 101st year, to also ensuring that our industry is not tarnished with an inappropriate perspective from consumers or governments that we're bad for the environment. And I believe, just like the recovery we've spoken about previously, we're all in this together, and therefore, we're happy to take a position of leading by example, as well as doing what we think is right for our business. And so back in 2008, we started the Tread Right Foundation with a focus, as one could see behind my screen, on 3 principles planet, people, and wildlife. And doing our part, obviously, we're not going to solve everything or anything for that matter, but we believe that it's right for our company, for our family, and for the industry, and for our travelers. And so some of the things that we've done recently, I'm happy to share with you. Back in November 2019, thanks to Gloria Guevara and the WTTC team, they asked me to lead a sustainability session at Harvard University with the T.H. Chan School of Public Health, which we did with about 30 of our global members. And it was a fantastic 2 days talking about what we need to do as an industry going forwards. How do we achieve carbon neutrality by 2030 based on the UN's goals and so forth. And we had many takeaways that came away from that session, one of which was, we need to treat the industry differently, being airlines to ocean cruise companies, to river cruise, to tour operators, to hotels, all very different. And one needs to look at each of those subsectors of the industry and come up with different plans, measurement tools, and so forth. Hilton's a great example of their science-based targets that they've implemented. Intrepid, who we've worked closely with, Daryl Wade's a good friend. They're the only B Corp in the industry, and they've been carbon neutral for several years. So is a company called Natural Habitat in America since 2007. A second takeaway from it was that Harvard committed to doing 2 studies, and we were very fortunate to be one of them, and Intrepid was the other. And in our case, as you can see on the screen, it was just published and released last week between WTTC, Harvard, and ourselves. Harvard did a deep dive in understanding our sustainability plan, which I'll come to in a moment. And in the case of Intrepid, looking at how they became a certified B Corp. To just have our audience better understand the Travel Corporation, or TTC as we call it. And we're a globally very diverse business of 40 brands. And as you can see from the top, these are our travel brands, which Gavin's been speaking about. We then have hotel and ship hospitality brands, from Uniworld River Cruising to Red Carnation. We're obviously very excited to reopen our 6 hotels here in central London next week. On the right, we are in the agency business, for those who don't know, with Penn Travel, one of the most successful agency models in South Africa that Gavin oversees with our cousin Michael. And so we really do understand the agent's perspective and plight, not just in the past year, but the challenges of working with preferred operators and so forth. So important, I think, for our agency partners to know that we're in your business as much as on the other side. And that's why we don't like to be called suppliers or tour operators, but really partners, because we're in this together, as Gavin has mentioned several times. And then below that, you can see our specialists and FIT brands all around the world. Brendan's a great one to shout out, because we bring tourists every day to Ireland and Scotland, our specialty and unique focus, which is anything with a kilt we do. And then brands like Haggis that operate, and Highland Explorer in Scotland as well. Evan Evans can't wait to reopen their doors. They were just doing training at the Rubens yesterday with some of our team. So again, great examples of seeing how the world is slowly but surely reopening. And then we have a number of B2B brands, as you can see in the bottom. As Gavin mentioned, these are our DMC operators. And the point being, it shows, I think, how globally diverse we are, and also how many brands we operate, and that if we can undertake this mission and start implementing it, and we believe our goals are achievable and realistic, anyone in the industry can. This just reinforces our roadmap and our journey that we've been on. So we started working on updating a 5-year sustainability strategy last year, which we launched in September. We began with a materiality assessment to determine the issues we felt had the greatest impact or potential to impact our business, and in turn, which we could affect meaningful change with. We also considered our travel life cycle, if you will, or the lifespan of the traveler's experiences with TTC, which is what you'll see on our screen. And Gavin's talked about that, and it's particularly true, I think, for our touring brands and for Uniworld, where you start dreaming about what destination you want to go to. You start making those plans, both internally and then working with the travel advisor. Then together we make that booking for you. And then you just sit back and leave the rest to us. And we ensure that the experiences we offer are authentic, they're what the customer wants. And then obviously afterwards, capturing their feedback, ensuring that we delivered what they wanted with our net presenter scores, and then working together with our travel agency partners to ensure that we continue to engage with them, identify what their next destination is, and so forth, and then ensure together that we get the customer to come back with us, and in turn, through sharing social media, that they get other customers to come to that travel agency, hopefully, and rebook with one of our brands. And I think that's a beautiful example of what we've been able to progress. As you saw on my screen earlier, this process included us mapping the issues that we wanted to address against the UN Sustainable Development Goals, of which there are 17, or SDGs as they're called. And we identified 11 of those goals of the SDGs that we've adapted to our action plan. So for example, how can we help address number one, which is eliminate poverty? And by us bringing our travelers to these amazing destinations, behind Gavin's screen, for example, is Colombia, one of our newest destinations that we launched in 2019 and obviously couldn't get off the ground. But I just met with President Santos, the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize in 2016 for bringing peace to Colombia. And obviously their focus in that destination is to have tourism be the #1 economic recovery, and for mirroring the same GDP results of a country like Greece that has 30% of its GDP from tourism. And so we want to support countries like Colombia that have an incredible opportunity, and the commitment of government and the private sector there to really make tourism such a strong economic recovery, which in turn will bring more women and girls into business and to starting a career, which is another one of the SDGs as an example. And then another one is obviously addressing climate change, food waste. Again, I was just at the Rubens yesterday. I can show it to you tonight. We've now implemented across all of our 18 Red Carnation properties a fantastic, very technically driven food waste program that we've really proven in the properties. We've had it in place for some time. It can reduce our food costs by 2 points, and substantially reduce our food waste by analyzing everything that you throw away. And if you're throwing away a lot of bread and butter, for example, you've got to reduce or change how you're serving bread and butter to your guests, because why throw all of that away? Food waste, as we know, is disgusting when you see how much food waste occurs, and yet how many millions of people are starving around the world. So it's such an important SDG that we all need to be a part of. Diversity and inclusion. I'm so proud of the teams that we've done work on. And this was something we started a long time ago. I met someone called Billy Culver at a WTTC event in Hainan, China 7 years ago. And he's very much in the LGBTQIA+ field. We got very involved, became good friends, and he's trained all of our travel directors, all of our cruise people at Uniworld, all of our Red Carnation staff, how to understand and talk to people from those communities and respect them appropriately and have much greater sensitivity to them. We launched last year on the back of what's called BRGs, or Business Resource Groups, something new called IDEA, which stands for Inclusivity, Diversity, Equality with Action. Because I believe, just saying things is totally irresponsible and doesn't get you anywhere. And we have 145 of these business groups now of individuals across our teams. I mean, the one that drives women inclusivity, I'm so proud of. We have people like Melissa Da Silva, who heads Trafalgar Cost Saver, and Brendan in the US, one of Gavin's strongest leaders. And her mentoring of young women, I was talking to some of them yesterday, and how proud they are to be involved, and that they can see that they have a journey and a career path with this industry and with TTC. Over 54% of our women are leaders in our group today. Over 50% of our travel directors are women. We have ensured our pay is absolutely equal, and in some cases is better than men. Because I hate to hear that, and that our industry says, and we talked about it in Cancun with WTTC, where they launched this fantastic women initiative, that women are brilliant leaders. And I have a sticker on my laptop that says the future is female, and I absolutely believe it. And again, that comes back to one of these SDGs. And I think every business needs to be doing that, because This is an incredibly diverse world. And again, our people are our best resources, I think, as everyone knows in this business, because if you love this business and are destined for it, what you need to get more than anything else is it is about people. And if you're a business that encourages and welcomes people of every background and anything that they're interested in, or what their focus is, or what their color of their skin is, or their sexual preference, you will include and retain more people than ever before. And obviously our customers of the future are going to be more like that. I have an 18 and 14-year-old son, and they totally understand and get gender fluidity. And, you know, over 30% of people around the world today do identify with something other than he or she. And I even include that on my email signature today, that I identify as a he, him. So, you know, just examples of what we need to do. And then we've obviously enhanced our experiences, which I'll talk about in a moment, and our animal welfare practices. So if I can show this video quickly, because it just highlights what we've done with this 5-year sustainability strategy.
How We Tread Right is the Travel Corporation's new 5-year sustainability strategy. It will guide the way we operate and the projects we support through our Tread Right Foundation to ensure we make travel matter. How We Tread Right identifies the issues that are impacting the health of our world and presents 11 strategic goals that will guide sustainability at TTC over the next 5 years. Our 11 sustainability goals are designed to align with the United Nations global goals, and all of which support our 3 pillars that continue to guide our sustainability efforts: the planet we call home, the people whose communities we visit, and the rich wildlife we find there. To support our planet, we are addressing the environmental footprint of our businesses and our trips to advance sustainability and work towards the conservation of our beautiful planet. To address our carbon footprint, TTC and our brands have committed to reducing our emissions where possible before purchasing offsets to address what we cannot draw down. Our goal is to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030 or sooner. We will source 50% of our electricity from renewable sources by 2025. Food is critical to the fabric of a destination. We will be mindful of our own practices and encourage sustainable food production across our trips. By 2025, our goal is to reduce food waste by 50% across all hotels and ships, and to increase use of local and organic products via our supply chain. To address our environmental impact, we must also work to minimize the waste we produce. By 2025, our goal is to reduce printed brochures by 50% and to eliminate as many unnecessary single-use plastics from our operations and itineraries by 2022. To support people, we aim to protect and empower the cultures and traditions of the worldwide communities we visit through travel. Make Travel Matter experiences are chosen with great care for the way in which they support the United Nations global goals and provides a positive impact for the traveler as well as the destination. Look for this seal to identify a Make Travel Matter experience across all our brands. By 2025, our goal is to include at least one Make Travel Matter experience on 50% of all itineraries, and to achieve a 20% increase of itineraries visiting developing regions by specialist brands. TTC and its family of brands aim to support our teams and communities through striving for increased diversity and inclusion and giving back to our communities. By 2025, our goal is to increase employee and market sentiment regarding diversity and inclusion across our brands. And our TTC family commits to completing 30,000 volunteer hours. Our guests have magnificent opportunities to view wildlife in its natural habitat. And through our wildlife pillar, we are working to ensure the conservation and protection of all the world's wildlife. We remain committed to providing only ethical animal experiences. We will ensure all wildlife experiences across TTC brands adhere to our animal welfare policy by 2021. Learn how TTC is living our Make Travel Matter pledge through How We Tread Right.
I'm just so proud of how far we've come. I would highlight what I said earlier. We have 3 incredible women who run Tread Right in our sustainability practices, which reinforces women are the future. And just to highlight these Make Travel Matter experiences. So again, they're all identified by the UN seal. We got special approval to use this, being a UN associate member, UNWTO, excuse me, and reinforcing that we do support the Sustainable Development Goals. We have over 1,500 itineraries, just so everyone understands the scale that we operate in a typical year. So when we talk about 50% of these trips that we operate overall will have a Make Travel Matter experience. That's over 750 of these. Some of our brands are already at 80 or 90% of that goal, including Trafalgar and Insight. And what these are basically phenomenally locally focused experiences that really do benefit the local communities, whether it's women and children and supporting charities in these areas, or other very unique experiences that we believe the traveler wants today. And again, will just benefit local communities in different ways. And I'm sure Gavin can give you a couple of experiences that we can highlight. And it's just fantastic to see how far along we are on this goal so far. And then also to note that, in terms of carbon neutrality, we announced on Earth Day that Kentucky will be our first brand to go carbon neutral, which will be from the 1st of next year. We'll be offsetting all of our business travel next year as well. And based on how the recovery goes, I'm very excited to be able to announce, which brands by the middle of next year will be carbon neutral from 23 onwards. So my hope and our expectation as a family and a business is that all of our brands will be carbon neutral by 25 is my goal, as opposed to everyone kind of kicking it further into touch for 2030.
I was going to say, I had it down as 2030, so you're bringing it forward 5 years. That's incredible.
Absolutely. Also on Earth Day, just a few weeks ago, TTC and all of our brands announced our climate action plan, which is just a more consistent 5 steps to measure, reduce, remove, offset, and evolve. This governs our commitment to become carbon neutral before 2030, as I said, as well as our commitment to increase the use of renewable electricity, goals 1 and 2 respectively. So with that, for example, with our hotels, we've already got lined up for when our current electricity contract expires at the end of this year. We've got a lineup with, I'm sure many of you know, Ufi Ibrahim, who used to be the number 2 at WTTC and then was head of the British Hospitality Association for some time. She now works with a company that provides renewable energy for hotels. And we're going to be working with them. So that goal is already well in line and committed to. And then also very excited to share some of our new Tread Right partners that we're supporting is reaching out to try to find ways to address how we eliminate carbon from our planet. And again, we announced on Earth Day 2 very exciting projects in the United States, which are all about trying to create bigger carbon sinks to capture carbon going forwards. And I am confident, as are others, whether it's Michael Bloomberg, Bill Gates, and others, that technology can solve our climate issues. So we think it's important for us to support startups, one of which is looking to develop ways to get more kelp to create ways to do carbon sinks in our oceans. And another is using a material called olivina that's in our oceans and creating new cycles that create more olivina, which is a fantastic way to capture carbon again in our oceans. So very excited about both of those projects and how we'll be going forwards. And then lastly, because again, people want to know, are you walking the talk, which is one of our principles always as a family, not to, say one thing and not do it, is, is the strategy achievable? And we absolutely know that it is. And this is largely due to the structure that we've built to support these efforts. The strategy overseen at the executive level, from myself to Gavin and others, is How We Tread Right. Has a steering committee and a group of our business leaders who ensure that we're considering the opportunity and the impact of their respective business functions, so that everyone is very much involved. And then we take it down to the brand leaders, brand level, where we have additional leadership groups tasked with the way in which each brand is responsible for implementation of the overall strategy. And lastly, everything we do in sustainability terms at TTC is guided and implemented by our incredible product and operations team. And this is obviously deliberate because it's the only way it can happen on the ground. So they're tasked with building our Make Travel Matter experiences, for example, which we've been doing all of last year in preparation for 21 and 22, for example. They're overseeing supplier relations and selection so that more of our supplier partners can get behind eliminating plastics, reducing their footprint by bringing in renewables and so forth, and assisting their carbon footprint measurements, as they are their own gatekeepers as well. And they're as committed to this critical implementation as anyone. And we've trained our travel directors on it as well. For example, when we eliminated single-use plastic across all of our operations on every brand in every country, in 2019, it obviously required the involvement of our travel directors and so forth. And it's just fantastic to see how everyone's on board with this. Everyone supports it and everyone wants to see it being successful. Again, I think it's a great way to recruit and retain people as we come out of this. And that's one thing, again, just as a warning to all of us, is we're seeing more and more around the world, people in our industry saying we cannot recruit new people as the world is recovering. So just a heads up, don't wait till the last minute to try to bring in new travel advisors or wherever it might be. As Gavin mentioned earlier, we've got an incredible contact center here that serves our travel agency partners in the UK. And we're currently out hiring new people because we know as these borders start becoming clearer and open and hopefully remain open, this demand is going to be massive. And we obviously don't want to miss that opportunity. And obviously no one else wants to either.
Yeah. Well, Brett, thank you for that. I mean, you should be rightly proud. It's impressive and actually really moving, really inspiring to see what you're doing. Just one supplementary question, because you were so comprehensive, but you mentioned at the outset how important this was for you to be doing this as a business, as a family, obviously really important for your values. But I wonder what you've noticed in terms of your customer base and how important it's sustainability and the planet, etc., is as part of their purchasing decision. And I wonder if that differs between particular nations or particular markets.
Brett, would you like me to answer that, Brett?
You can take that one, Gavin. Yeah.
Okay, sure. And Lucy, there is no doubt that one of the consequences of the coming out of COVID-19 is the desire for people who do travel to make sure that that their travel pound actually does make a difference.
Okay.
And it is and is global. This is a global phenomenon of, it's not just the desire to get out, but it actually is the desire to make sure that the money we spend is helping those in the places we go. And so, the way I see it, Lucy, is really one of, it's the value of travel to the places we go is impacting the values of travel itself. And what we are definitely seeing is within that comprehensive cycle of ourselves. And I guess what Brett shared with you is one, which, as we look to our greater industry here in the United Kingdom, is the fact that this is not rhetoric, Lucy. This is real, right? And what TTC is doing here is we are articulating clearly and specifically the tactics, the tactical undertakings we are, but more importantly, it's not only that we are taking them on, Lucy, but they actually are measurable.
Right.
And what I would say to everyone within our industry, Lucy, is really one. It wasn't that long ago that you and I were talking about, and I remember it was at the Chesterfield having a dinner together, where I spoke to a number of people here in the trade. And one of the questions to me was all about over-tourism.
Yeah.
And we should not forget that this cannot just be words. It cannot be greenwashing. We all have got to make sure that what we do is real, whether it's in the recruitment, in our actions, every single thing we do, and to take this on, because as an industry, Lucy, it'll be good for the places we visit, ensuring that travel is this force for good, but even more so, and to answer your question very specifically, good for business too, because you are going to attract a new customer base. Not only that, as Brett just said, it is one of the most powerful things we are seeing in recruitment, and particularly of the younger generation, when you actually are cognizant and conscious of your footprint, you are attracting some of the best of the best. And so there's a win-win in all ways of making sure this is part of your business model, Lucy.
Okay.
Can I just clarify one thing also? I forgot to mention, just so travel advisors are aware, TTC funds everything. We're funding all of it, from the carbon neutrality, for example, from Kentucky. We are doing everything in terms of the customer's footprint as well as ours when they're on the ground. And then we're encouraged, the only part we're not offsetting is their flight to and from the destination, but we will encourage them to offset that themselves.
Yeah.
And certainly we've got a brilliant offset partner, southpole.org, that came up with, example, these very innovative new technologies that we're supporting to see if we can find ways to eliminate or reduce our carbon. So important to know, because many companies who are in the space do ask the customer to contribute to offset their footprint and so forth. And that's something we do not believe is right. The customer's paying for their trip, and we believe it's our responsibility as a family and business to take a portion of that profit and put it into Tread Right to fund these initiatives.
Yes, back to the walking the talk properly, which is really good to hear. All right, listen, gentlemen, I'm so conscious of your time, but Gavin, we can't let you go because we announced, we had a story that we released just this morning around your DMCs and opening it up to other travel companies. So it's not a seamless segue from the Tread Right Foundation, but I just wonder if you could just give us an update on why you've chosen to do that and what that means for the industry.
So, Lucy, it was something we had never really thought about. And it's a great question of almost from where you first asked, Brett, is what have we been doing during these last 14, 15 months, Lucy? And as we looked at our world as it existed, we started to see a number of things occurring, particularly in some of the more remote areas of the world where we have infrastructure. And one of the great examples for us is that of South Africa, where we are the largest inbound tour operator into South Africa. And what we began to hear about is, as a consequence, and obviously sadly, many of the small businesses did not make it, Lucy. Yeah. And for many of our many partners in various parts of the world, they began to become unbelievably concerned around a number of things. Number one, how do you verify that if I'm taking customers to various parts of the world, is my DMC going to be doing the right thing? Number one. Number two is, with the ever fluctuating variables of currency, particularly at this time, what is my risk factor if I make commitments of taking people, particularly those who are looking to book further and further out, and those who are looking to see how do you do this as a series of business. And what we saw, Lucy, is obviously we have built our own business based on our ability to operate globally, based on this depth and richness of experiences. And what we saw was an opportunity to give others who look to operate their own series, obviously working hand in hand for those who want to book directly with our brands, but if they have their own series they would want to do, giving them access, Lucy, to us and our various DMCs that we have in countries around the world. And that now is what we've done, and we've brought it. And if you look at ttc.com, you'll see we have a section on our DMCs. Have a look, and we look forward to working with those partners who,
even if they're your
interested.
competitors, Gavin.
Absolutely, we always have done business that way, Lucy. For us, this is about the greater good for our industry itself.
Yeah,
and we have never been an exclusively inward-looking company. We always see the greater, there are plenty of customers out there for everyone. And, it's not about all of us working to try and steal that exact same customer. It is for all of us to work together to inspire travel for the greater good.
For example, we've operated inbound to the US for Titan and Saga for many years. Right. We operated previously for Virgin Holidays as well. So they're 3 brands, for example, based here in the UK that we've supported and worked with many years of successful partnership together.
Okay. And as you say, Brett, when we look at touring, Lucy, in South Africa, we operate for Adventures by Disney, and we also operated Adventures by Disney's touring series in Ireland too. So, we have done it.
You're doing it already, but you've just opened it up.
But softly. We're just opening it up to all.
All right. Well, I hope that goes really well. I know you're busy men, but just, Brett, you did just mention we mustn't let it pass. It was your 100th birthday, wasn't it? Anniversary last year. You weren't able to have the celebrations you wanted. I know you said, well, we'll do it in 2021 instead, but clearly this year isn't going quite as we planned either. This last 14 months must have tested both your leadership skills to the absolute hilt, I imagine. But it sounds like you've still got all your team motivated, and you're doing all these things behind the scenes. I'm sure you've got even more up your sleeve that you'll be telling us about new launches and things. So, I guess just a final question really around your anniversary. We're definitely going to see you for another 100 years, aren't we, after this?
Absolutely. We've already booked August 17th for 2022 for our get-together here in London.
Nice.
Museum of Natural History booked for our gala dinner. And the Grosvenor House is where we'll host our business events. They've been a great partner. We love Stuart, the GM there. That's where Red Carnation has their annual employee celebration for over 800 people. So we certainly have those plans. But, the last 14 months, frankly, has shown how much empathy we need to have, how we need to be great listeners. And we've certainly worked hard to support our teams, because it hasn't been about us. We've made it through easily enough. But I have such, feelings for those young people who were living at home in cramped quarters, apartments that had flats, that had very poor Wi-Fi, that didn't have air conditioning in the summer, or young parents with very small children at home. My heart goes out to those people more than any others, and also my children. But I think we had it relatively easy compared to so many. And obviously, most importantly, those who lost family members and friends during this time. It's just devastating. So, I certainly have no complaints. I was able to live at home with my wife and children and dogs for 14 months, something I've never done. So I really look for the bright spots and the beautiful moments. And I look back with those good memories, but my feelings really go out to our people and all of those that have suffered and continue to suffer with the so-called, COVID apartheid. When you look at India and Africa, where we were born, and those countries that just don't have the vaccine yet. And I'm certainly hoping President Biden and other leaders will start sharing the excess capacity they have. And obviously that these patents are loosened up so that countries like India can start rolling out this vaccine much faster. Because as Gavin said on other things, we're all in this together. Unless we fix herd immunity in every country, this thing is not going away, and the new variants will keep coming, challenging the current vaccinated people. So, I do hope as a global population, we do start reaching out beyond our own borders to helping others, because otherwise this thing's not going away anytime soon.
Okay, well, I'm sure everyone will agree with you on that. I think we've probably come to time. It's such a joy to speak to you both. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your insight of how you've coped in the last year with our audience. And we wish you all the very best of luck.
You too, Lucy.
You too.
Can't wait to
Thanks, Lucy.
Travel Weekly event in person coming up soon.
Brilliant. You have the first invite. We want to see you there. Thank you very much.
Look forward to it.
Take
Thanks,
care. See you
Lucy.
later.